Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are plunging into, well, a really interesting document. It challenges some pretty fundamental beliefs we hold about our lives. The author calls them 17 ideas you're keeping about your life that are only holding you back.
That's right. And the core idea, it's simple, but quite powerful.
Hmm.
A lot of the assumptions we carry around, sometimes without even realizing it, they aren't just neutral. They might actually be actively stopping us from growing or finding contentment or even just seeing things clearly. The source really wants us to, question the stories we tell ourselves.
Exactly. And our mission right now for this deep dive is to unpack these 17 ideas. We'll look at what the source says each idea is, explore the counter arguments it brings up, and pull out the key insights that might really hit home for you. Think of this as a shortcut, really, designed just for you, our listener, to quickly grasp these concepts and maybe, just maybe, spot a few limiting beliefs you might be holding on to yourself. Okay, let's get into it.
Absolutely. And the source starts by looking inward, really, at how we see ourselves and maybe even more importantly, how we think other people see us.
Yeah, this first cluster feels instantly relatable. This idea that we're constantly being watched, scrutinized.
That's idea #4. You're a celebrity in your own mind. Everyone is watching you and judging your choices. The source even gives it a name, the spotlight complex.
Mm.
It's that feeling, like you're the main character on stage and everyone else is the audience, just picking apart every little thing you do.
Oh, I totally know that feeling. Like if you wear something a bit weird or trip on the sidewalk, it feels like this huge deal for everyone around.
Exactly. But the source gives this really blunt counterpoint, which I kind of appreciate for its directness. Nobody is thinking about you the way you are thinking about you, nor nearly as much. Use that great simple example. Nobody cares if you wear an unflattering shirt out to the pharmacy. Basically, our internal spotlight is way, way brighter than any external one.
Which makes total sense. And it ties right into idea #14, doesn't it? If they're not watching now, they're definitely not dwelling on stuff from ages ago. Idea #14 is that belief that people are ruminating on the embarrassing stuff you did 5 years ago.
Right. And the source's answer is pretty much a mirror image of the last point. They're too busy ruminating on their own embarrassing stuff. Same way you're focused on yours. The source even asks you, the listener, directly. Are you thinking about things other people did over the years to any significant degree? And the answer is probably, well, it's unlikely. It highlights how we're all pretty self-focused, which kind of ironically frees us up a bit from worrying about judgment.
Okay, so if we're not being judged constantly and people aren't holding on to our past mistakes, maybe the bigger issue is how we judge ourselves. This next idea feels related to this belief that you're somehow special, the exception.
Yeah, that takes us to idea #3. You'll be the exception to everything. This is that mindset where you think basic rules or consequences just don't apply to you. You don't need to save money like everyone else or wear sunscreen or maybe even treat people respectfully all the time because, hey, your situation's different. Or you'll just magically avoid the fallout.
That sounds like a pretty dangerous way to think, like self-deception.
It really does. The source doesn't spell out a counter-argument quite as explicitly here, but it's strongly implied. This belief holds you back. It stops you from taking those basic necessary actions for your own well-being, your health, your finances, your relationships. It kind of disconnects you from reality.
Okay, so challenge the perceived external judgment. Let go of the past haunting us. Realize we're not above the rules. What about that internal pressure then? The need to always be right.
Ah, yes. Idea. #15. You must be right to be a valid, intelligent human being. This one ties our basic worth, our intelligence, to constantly having the correct opinion or the right answer.
Wow, that's a lot of pressure. Needing to be infallible all the time. What does the source suggest instead?
It actually offers a different take on intelligence. It says the most intelligent people are more open to being wrong than anyone. But the deeper message here, I think, is about fundamental self-acceptance. The source says, and this is powerful, you do not need to be consistently right or exceedingly smart or stunningly beautiful or anything else to be worthwhile and lovable. Your value isn't tied to your performance.
Wow, shifting from needing external approval or internal rightness to just being enough. That's a huge challenge to how many of us operate. And what about how we label ourselves, especially with our struggles?
That leads us straight to idea #16. You are your struggles. The source highlights how we tend to say things like, I am an anxious person, instead of maybe, I sometimes feel anxiety.
It seems like a small difference in wording, just phrasing, but the source thinks it's more significant.
Oh, definitely. It's crucial. The source's counter is really direct here. You identify with your problems, which is likely a huge reason why you can't overcome them. By saying, I am anxious, you make that feeling a core part of who you are, your identity. And that makes it incredibly hard to separate from it, to actually work on it. You sort of fuse with the problem.
So this whole first section, it really peels back layers on how we see ourselves compared to others, our past, the rules, this need to be right, and how we internalize challenges. The big takeaway seems to be about untangling our actual self-worth from all that external stuff, what others think, what we did before, feeling special, being right, even our current problems.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that so much of what we think defines us, or what we think others think about us, are really just internal ideas that might be holding us back.
Absolutely. Okay, let's pivot a bit now. Let's look at ideas more focused on external things, achievement, work, success, effort, timing, starting with that classic belief, work hard and success is yours.
Yeah, idea #1. If you work hard enough, success is a guarantee. This was baked into so many cultures, right? But the source offers a bit of a reality check. It says, most people are rarely successful in the way they first set out to be.
So hold on. Is the source saying hard work isn't enough? That feels almost controversial.
Well, it's not dismissing hard work, not at all.
Yeah.
What is challenging is the guarantee. The suggestion is more about shifting your perspective. Focus on liking the process of getting there, because ultimately, all you can control is how much work you put in, not exactly what comes out. Success has other variables, right? Luck, timing, market shifts, stuff you can't control just by effort alone.
Okay, so control the effort, manage the process, but don't bank on a guaranteed outcome just from that. What about the flip side related to motivation, just wanting something really, really badly? Is that enough?
That's ID #2. Wanting something badly enough qualifies you to have it. Sounds nice, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Very aspirational.
It does. Like pure willpower will just make things happen.
Yeah, the source kind of pops that bill pretty fast. It says, nobody ever got anything from just wanting it badly enough. It immediately adds the crucial part. Desire has to fuel action. You have to want it badly enough to sacrifice and to work hard, become qualified, keep your head up through tons of rejection and doubt, and then rinse and repeat for as long as it takes. Desire is just the starting point, the fuel, not the whole journey.
Right. So effort matters. Sticking with it matters, not just wishing.
Okay. And when you are putting in that work, how fast should results come? ID #5 tackles this expectation for speed.
Idea #5. If you're doing something right, results will be instantaneous. And in our world of instant gratification, instant everything, it's easy to fall for this one.
So what's the source's take on that? Probably not instant. Definitely not. A strong counter. If you're doing something right, the results will take a very long time to build up and produce an outcome you're happy with. It implies that anything really worthwhile, anything significant, takes time, patience, persistence over the long haul. Think about like compound interest or learning a skill properly. It doesn't happen overnight.
That slow build really contrasts with another idea, the source questions, this whole virtue of being constantly busy.
Idea #6. Busyness is a good thing. We often wear it like a badge of honor, right? Like it proves we're important or productive.
But the source sees it differently.
Very differently. The source argues being busy is what happens when people are ill-equipped to manage their stress. It makes a distinction between that frantic energy and people who actually have a lot to do.
Wow.
Those people, the source says, they focus on getting it done simply because they don't have another choice. The insight is that maybe that constant busyness is more about feeling overwhelmed or disorganized than being genuinely productive.
Wow, that's a powerful reframing. It's not about the full schedule, but how effectively you handle what's actually on it. Okay, what about waiting for the stars to align perfectly before you start something big?
That's ID #7. There's a right time to create, get married, have a child, or start pursuing a calling. This belief keeps us waiting, right? Waiting for everything to be just perfect enough money, the right job, the perfect mood.
Which, let's be honest, almost never happens.
Exactly. The source's counter is blunt and cuts right through it. If you're looking for an excuse as to why it's not the right time, you'll always find one. It basically suggests the right time is often just a fancy excuse for fear or just not wanting to start, rather than a real external barrier.
Okay, makes sense. And finally, for this section on work and achievement, let's tackle that idea that everyone can and should have a job they absolutely love.
Right, idea #10. Everybody can have a job they love if they work hard enough. This fits nicely with that whole follow your passion narrative, which the source complicates a bit.
How do they complicate it?
It offers a more maybe grounded perspective. It says, everybody can find a way to enjoy their job, regardless of the inevitable challenges that come with any job. but nobody is entitled to do work that happens to fit precisely within their realm of interest and comfort. The key takeaway seems to be finding enjoyment within the work you do, understanding that all jobs have downsides, rather than expecting your job to be this perfect, effortless passion project 24/7.
Okay, so this whole section really dismantles some romantic notions about success, effort, and timing. It grounds us more in reality. Results take time. Wanting isn't enough without doing. Busyness isn't always good. The right time is often just an excuse, and finding fulfillment at work is different from expecting constant passion.
Yeah, it shifts the focus away from those external benchmarks and perfect conditions towards focusing on your own process and having more realistic expectations.
Moving on then, let's look at ideas about adulthood itself and personal responsibility. Idea #8 tackles this common feeling that being an adult is just inherently hard.
Yeah, ID #8. Adulthood is hard. Now, the source definitely acknowledges that life throws real difficulties our way. It uses words like challenging and heartbreaking and trying. Those things are absolutely real and significant.
But there's a distinction it makes.
Yes, the counterpoint isn't that life isn't hard, but specifically that learning how to perform basic functions is not one of them.
Mm.
The truly hard parts are the unexpected crises, the emotional pain, the big existential stuff. The source seems to imply that managing your bills, doing laundry, feeding yourself for a compass, the basic mechanics of being a grown-up aren't the inherently hard parts, even if they require discipline. Confusing the two can make everything feel impossibly difficult.
That's a really interesting distinction. It's the weight of life's big challenges that's hard, not necessarily the day-to-day functioning. Okay. What about responsibility, especially for things we didn't intend to do?
That brings us to idea #11. You're not responsible for that which you do unintentionally. The source frames this as believing that basically if you aren't conscious of the repercussions of something, they don't count.
So if you didn't mean it or didn't realize it, you're off the hook.
The source says absolutely not. It gives some clear examples. Accidentally hurting someone's feelings doesn't really hurt them. Time you don't realize wasting isn't wasted. Money spent on necessities isn't money spent. The source's argument is crystal clear. The repercussions do count. Regardless of whether you were aware or intended them, you're still responsible for the impact of your actions, or even your inaction.
So this section really emphasizes the source's view that, one, we shouldn't confuse the basic tasks of adulting with life's genuine heavy hardships, and two, our responsibility goes beyond just our conscious intentions. It includes the actual results of what we do.
Right. It's really a call for more presence, more awareness, and more ownership in our lives.
Let's shift focus again now to ideas about life's purpose and our relationships, particularly with a life partner. First up, the big one, purpose.
Idea #9. Your purpose is something existentially profound. That pressure to find some grand, unique, world-altering mission for your life to feel meaningful.
Yeah, that can lead to a lot of anxiety, can't it, if you feel like you haven't found that thing?
Exactly. Feeling paralyzed. The source offers a counter that, honestly, many people might find quite liberating. It says, your purpose is just to be here and to do whatever job you find yourself doing. It suggests you don't need to be consciously changing the world to fulfill it. Purpose, in this view, is found more simply, just in existing, engaging with what's right in front of you, doing your work, being present, not necessarily in achieving some huge, predefined destiny.
That definitely takes the pressure off needing some kind of superhero origin story. What about our expectations for a life partner, then?
That's idea #12. Your life partner is responsible for making you feel one very specific way. The source points out that people often use this single feeling, maybe always feeling happy or secure or fulfilled, to determine whether or not your relationship is good or worthwhile.
So the source is challenging that really narrow way of judging a relationship's value.
It is. It implies that boiling down the whole complexity, the richness of a partnership to whether one person consistently delivers just one specific emotion is unrealistic and pretty limiting. A real partnership involves navigating, the full spectrum of emotions in shared life, putting the entire burden of your emotional state onto someone else. That's unfair and probably unsustainable.
So these ideas seem to suggest letting go of these huge, abstract ideas about purpose and maybe overly simplistic, demanding expectations in relationships, focusing more on just being present and the reality of human connection.
Yeah, finding the meaning and connection right here, right now, rather than in some distant, ideal, or rigid emotional checklist.
Okay, we're down to the last couple of ideas from the source, focusing now on acceptance and happiness. Idea #13 links acceptance with feeling good about something.
Right. Idea #13. To accept something, you must be happy about it, or at least okay with it. This common belief suggests acceptance equals liking or approving of whatever's happening.
But acceptance is different from approval, isn't it? It feels different.
Precisely. And the source makes that crucial distinction very clearly. You can accept your circumstances, acknowledge they are real, while still disliking them strongly. Acceptance is about acknowledging reality, seeing things as they are, not how you wish they were. And the source emphasizes why this is so practically necessary. If you want to preserve your sanity, you have to accept whatever comes into your life before you can change it. You can't effectively start changing something if you haven't first fully admitted it's real.
That distinction feels key. Acceptance as the starting point for change, not the end point where you suddenly feel fine about a bad situation. Okay, and finally, the big one. Happiness itself.
ID, #17. You can only be as happy as your circumstances allow. This belief puts your happiness entirely outside your control, making it totally dependent on external events, what happens to you.
Which feels like a recipe for feeling like a victim, right? Just tossed around by life.
Exactly. And the source comes back with a really strong, empowering counter-argument here. It argues that happiness isn't dictated by circumstances, but it's built through internal choices and actions. It says, you will only be as happy as you choose to focus on what's positive, reconcile and problem solve what's negative, build the relationships that matter, validate yourself, and develop your mindset. And the core statement from the source, the real punchline is, you cannot choose a feeling, but you can always choose what you think about.
Wow. That last line, you cannot choose a feeling, but you can always choose what you think about. That really hits home. It puts the power right back with the individual.
It absolutely does. And the source argues that if you reject this idea, the idea that you have real agency over your perspective and internal state, no matter what's happening outside, well, then you basically submit and doom yourself to a life in which you are never truly happy at all. It's maybe the most challenging, but also the most empowering idea on the whole list.
Wow. Okay. Taking this deep dive into these 17 ideas from the source, it's given us a lot to think about, from challenging how we see ourselves and that fear of judgment to rethinking success, responsibility, purpose, and ultimately our own capacity for happiness.
It really does provide a powerful framework, doesn't it? For identifying and questioning those beliefs that often operate unseen, but might be silently shaping our choices and, as the source says, holding us back.
It's been an incredibly insightful journey through this material. Thanks for walking us through these ideas.
My pleasure. It's always fascinating stuff to dig into these common assumptions.
And thank you for joining us on this deep dive. This exploration into the source material has definitely offered a fresh perspective on some really deeply ingrained ideas. Considering how many of these points ultimately come back to the power of perspective and the choices we make, here's something to think about. What is one small belief you might commit to examining in your own life this week?